So when I was preparing for the talk, I was trying to come up with a title slide, always the most challenging bit. And I thought of these three words. And I initially started thinking I'd title it tacos, tequila, and something else. Then I thought that's not very fair to South by Southwest. And to be honest, I didn't drink that much tequila anyway. So what is the first thing that I saw emerge out of South by Southwest this year as a theme? Pretty much everywhere, I saw examples of brands coming to terms with the fact that they need to be open in this day and age if they want to make use of the fact that technology is everywhere and that they have fans around the world sitting in a room, maybe even on the street thanks to their mobile, willing to listen to them and participate with what they have to say. I attended an excellent session really by the Boing guys, fantastic geek blog really, in partnership with Ford. So Team Detroit, who's Ford's agency, conducted a hackathon last year in San Francisco around August time. And the interesting thing was that Boing isn't a brand that typically allows itself to partner with just any old brand. And they were prepared to sort of go up in arms if Ford said that they wanted proprietary use of the data. The good news is that Ford actually insisted that the data that came out of the hackathon be open source. And Team Detroit's ECD actually said that as a result of allowing themselves to, to give all this data to the community, to developers, and there were 50 streams, 50 API sources of car data coming out of a vehicle at any given time. And developers were allowed to take this data, all available on the OpenXC community online that Ford created for developers, and tweak bits and pieces of that data to create a product, a car, that is really much more interesting than a general car would be. And the ECD actually said that as a result of this, they were able to focus on doing the really interesting stuff, which is making the product more interesting rather than focusing on just cranking out machine line products. And that was an interesting quote, I thought, by the Boing guys, which was that the world is a hackable platform today. Everything that we do or see can be hacked and will be hacked if you give enough people enough time and the resources. And these are a couple of screenshots from examples of the hack hack day output. The first was a little graphic LED display that can be at the back of your car that literally sends a message. If you press your foot on the brake, then it'll show you a graphic of that so that people around you can see little man pressing on the brake, okay, this car's slowing down. If someone allows you to pass, you can flash a message at the back saying thanks. This is a really interesting hack by a guy who's into craft work. And depending on how fast or slow or crazy you are as a driver, the music in the car starts going more and more frantic or a little bit calmer. And there's a video here that takes you through what went on at the hack day, and that'll tell you what it was all about. Play the video, please.
Boing's been around as a brand since 1988, and Boing Ingenuity, in partnership with Ford, is the first ever large-scale live event we've ever done. We were talking about, sort of at a high level, things that were interesting to us. We came up with the idea of data-driven, a hack day, where we would invite our favorite sort of A-list hackers from the extended Boing community to come together and do anything that they wanted to create around the idea of data-driven. So hacks to improve or optimize the driving experience.
Ford is extremely excited to have this kind of a forum in which we do have these really awesome hackers around us, looking at OpenXC, looking at our vehicles, and really for us, this day is about, what ideas do people have? How will this eventually affect kind of the course of the way that, Ford designs cars and, designs data to be taken out of cars? One guy is working on he has this really expressive, really awesome LED display. He's working on different ways to take data from the vehicle to signal information back to people behind him. So like, for example, if he's hitting the brake, then it shows a picture of this foot going down on a brake.
There's one person up there who's actually one of the earliest pioneers in virtual reality who's here. We're really excited about that. And his idea was inspired by the Kraftwerk song Autobahn. And so he's using the data and the vehicle basically to conduct a virtual orchestra in creating music, so using the data as a tool of composition.
We're definitely in a position where we're trying to bring people into a community that we're trying to co-create with others, right? I mean, so we're definitely, like, open source is not really in the DNA of automotive at this point. So
it is now.
Yeah. I mean, that's where we're driving it. So I mean, my hope is that after today's event and perhaps future events, we really will be able to form this community and see that it grows, that we actually get contributions back to the platform.
For me, with Science Hack Days and Hack Days in general, the most amazing stuff often happens after the hack day. So a lot of people are sharing these ideas and the prototypes online, and Ford's encouraged everybody here to release what they've done under open source. And so I'm really excited to see how people continue the ideas. If they have 12 hours today to work on something, imagine if they had 2 weeks or 2 months.
Right. Yeah, and definitely, just to add on to that, I mean, I really don't want to think of this as like, okay, we're closing up shop at the end of today and now we're stopping, right? I really want to see these projects continue and grow.
So that was the really interesting thing about that, the fact that he said it as well. Open source is not in the DNA of an automotive brand. It definitely isn't. The fact that more and more brands are being comfortable with this is something that I saw a lot. There was an interesting talk by the guys at Lego, actually, and they spoke about a similar thing. The online community and fan-driven communities, and how people are, now it's legitimate for them. They're allowed to participate in the brand. So rebrick.com is a community that's run by Lego fans, where they can upload images of their various Lego creations. And Lego, I think QSO it's called, is a platform that is a co-creation platform, literally, where Lego allows the community to vote on what products they should be working with next. And then there was another great talk by the guys at Hasbro. And based on the insight that when people play Monopoly, one of the biggest debates and arguments is what icon is used by who when they sit around the board. And so they decided to have a global vote to see which one of those little characters was going to be retired and be replaced by a new one. And over a period of a month, more than like 100 people from over 180 countries around the world participated. And in the end, I think the iron was voted out. And it was on the Today Show in the US. It was huge. And like this, a lot of brands are doing things like that allow people to be part of the process and be part of the brand. The second thing I saw a lot of, and then I thought was really interesting, was something that Dan spoke about as well. How products are changing as a result of technology and the changes in technology and the speed at which we have access to it. So there was a great talk by the guys from IDEO and MIT Media Lab, and they are working together to create a platform which sort of translates the different kinds of things that MIT Media Lab is working on, and I'll speak to you a bit about what they are. Into language that we can understand. I encourage you to go to that website. It's called madeinthefuture.co. And IDEO was talking about how we're now able to completely change the way we design and manufacture product, right? So what MIT is doing in different groups, they have the effective computing group, which uses wearable sensors. Now we all know wearable, and a Nike Plus, Fitbit, Jawbone, all the rest of it. Products are common, but what they're doing is trying to understand how these sensors can then be used to design better experiences for people. So for example, they're conducting experiments that have people wearing these sensors and then see how they react to different brands in a set environment. When people are given specific products to interact with, they need a frame of reference, right? So that's one of the interesting insights that came out of this. The work that they're doing is that you need your competitors' products on the shelves when you show your product, because people need to be able to evaluate. When they were wearing these sensors, That's something that came out of that kind of research, and the effective computing group is delving into that even further. Understanding depth of material. So the mediated matter group at the MIT Media Lab is working on 3D material that has variable density. So usually with 3D printers, plastic is all of a certain grade, you print products, and great, that they churned out. But the fact is that as a result, because of the kind of material that we have access to and the technology that we have access to, we don't need material to be wasted. They don't need to be of a uniform kind. We can assess the difference in depth and density and then custom make products to an even greater degree than 3D printing already allows us to. And then there's bioengineering. So I think bioengineering is something that was said, at least to be at South by Southwest by the MIT Media Lab guys, to be sort of the future. In fact, Joy Ito, who is the director of the MIT Media Lab, said that in that specific field, they're seeing technology accelerating at 6 times the pace of Moore's law, so not the usual 1.5 to 2 years. And at some point, he says that bioengineering will be as common as the internet is now, right? And there are examples of different parts of his group again. One of the groups, I think, is called the self-assembly group. And they're working on material that can literally build themselves, right? And there's a video now, if you could just play the video, that will show you exactly how that's done. Bits and pieces, and you'll see there's no sound for this video, but it's these bits and pieces that are, when presented with the right pressure and right energy, they just come together on their own. It's quite interesting to watch. It's like a worm that suddenly self-forms. So when you think about material like this, you need to think about how you can influence the manufacturing process, right? Systems and manufacturing processes, marketing processes, everything that we have, they're all getting more and more complex. We're shifting from large-scale manufacturing, what a Ford does in the olden times, what it did, to small-scale manufacturing. So Asda has 3D printers now, right? I don't think 3D printers are going to come into everyone's home in soon at least. They're available, but no one's going to go and buy them large scale. But we're getting to a point where the middle point, where small-scale craft-based stuff can be done hand in hand with the lessons that you've learned from large-scale manufacturing. And that's a quote by Tim Brown, who's the CEO of IDEO, during that talk. We're getting to a point where that's possible. So what are the implications for us as marketers? We're used to selling things at scale, right? But on the other hand, custom building products like the Hack Day output, for example, like the other kind of stuff that we're doing when we have access to specific kinds of material, 3D printers and stuff. What does that mean for us as agencies and marketers? The other thing that I saw a lot about is how people were talking and doing key. That's the important thing. Brands were absolutely out there doing stuff. They weren't just talking like we're used to seeing them do, because ideas are a dime a dozen nowadays. On the web, anyone can say what they want to. It's all down to what you're doing. Alexis Ohanian is the founder of Reddit. Many of you guys probably know Reddit. And he was talking about how when he was building the company, everyone basically said, don't waste your time. Dig exists already, and Dig will have you for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He didn't listen to them, went ahead and built Reddit, and then sold it quite a few years later for millions of dollars, so made a lot of money. And he was speaking about a book, really. So he had an ulterior motive, in a sense, talking about a book that he's written called Without Their Permission. And he's on a book tour in the US that I think has just concluded, promoting it. But his point was that you need to get up out of your seat and act on the idea that you've always had, because if you don't, your competitor will. And that's another theme that I saw a lot of. This was the T-shirt OS 2.0 by a San Francisco-based company. And it's programmable, LED display on the front, and it's washable, right? It costs $2,000 at the moment. But the founder of the T-shirt was on stage, and she said, in a few years, it's probably going to come down to $200, right? And then you're going to see everyone wearing it. So when you have products like this, and it can be controlled, you can control the display with the mobile app. So someone's wearing it, you have control over it. On stage, Scoble was actually wearing it, the guy who's been mentioned a lot already. And someone chucked a mug of water at him. He was fine because it's waterproof. With products like this, you've got to start thinking about how you can start using these kinds of things to give people some value. Another couple of examples, that's a program, well, a LED display wheel, a bike wheel. You know, when you move, you can program it to say anything you want. This was a 3D printing machine that Deloitte had going in the lounge. You just take a picture. They had a computer right behind where with the webcam, take a picture, and they start printing you then and there, right? So these kinds of things are common now. But the interesting thing, as with the Mondelez Oreo cookie 3D printer, the fact is that people are out there doing it. And Mondelez is a client of ours here in the UK, and Bonin Bao, who's the VP of Global Media and Innovation there, he is driving a cultural revolution, and that's the important thing. Doing things, and saying things is easy, doing it is difficult, but actually making like a 10,000 plus number company to get out there and do stuff isn't easy. It won't all succeed. At SXSWi, along with the 3D printing machine, they had, Mondelez had a WeChat configured vending machine. WeChat has got 300 plus million users in China. It's the equivalent of WhatsApp for them, probably bigger on a global scale. And what they were doing was configure it such that people can pay for Oreos through their mobile, through WeChat, through their app, and then send a packet of Oreos to anyone they want, anywhere in the country. And when they get that message, their friend or family or whoever goes to a vending machine that's connected you know, with the Mondelez WeChat app and go and pick up the product then and there, right? So these are things that people are trying. And what Mr. Bao is saying is that you need to go out there and do it, because if you don't, somebody else will. A couple of weeks ago, Vox Media was launched globally, based in the US. Ezra Klein is an ex-Washington Post journalist, and he was very upfront about it when they launched. Their first post was, "This is a work in progress. This isn't finished. We're a media publication, but we know we're going to have a lot of things to deal with. You will see kinks and problems in on the website. Let us know what they are." And that's the important thing. That I think companies like Vox, I mean, Washington Post didn't want to have him on, so he created a thing of his own, and he's going out there without wasting time. The last thing that I wanted to speak about very quickly was how, when I went this year, I wanted to search out the things that weren't there the last time I went, which was 3 years ago. And one of those things was the workshops that they're doing now. I spent 6 hours at the University of Texas in Austin, loser, listening to some really interesting people talk about bias and filters and collaboration. That's Nate Matthias, and this is Sarah Zalovitz from the MIT Media Lab again. There was a clear method to my madness over there, as you see. And they were talking about the different kinds of research that they're doing that look at what media brands claim to do, and then what they've actually done. So the op-ed project tracks the number of mentions of men and women in media. The Whose Voices project works with Global Voices, which is a non-profit that, again, this specific project looks at mentions of Twitter handles in different articles. Project Implicit is at Harvard University, and it measures our inherent biases, race, gender. If you key in these terms, you can measure this for yourself. And then the OPA Gender Tracking Project with the Boston Globe that does a similar thing. But the most interesting thing that I thought they mentioned was Nate worked with The Guardian a couple of years ago now, actually. They analyzed articles that were coming out of The Guardian, The Daily Mail, The Telegraph. And they realized that more articles are written by men, but more articles are shared, more female-authored articles are shared on the web. Compared to both the Daily Mail and the Guardian, Telegraph readers don't share articles by women as much. And that was really interesting, because you don't typically think of that when you read these publications, right? They also then spoke about a project that they're working on right now. It's called Follow Bias. And what Follow Bias does is it helps you analyze how many men, women, and then brands, basically, so non-individual accounts you're following on Twitter. I went on the web as the workshop was being run and thought, okay, come on, surely I'm following at least roughly 60-40. I was absolutely shocked at the results. So you think you're doing one thing, and then what happens is another. And so with brands as well, I think a lot of people today, they have an audience, they know who their audience is, but when they're speaking to that audience, what they're saying can be very, very different. And the interesting thing is that today, people can easily call you out. I leave you with this, which is a session I went to by Greg Gunn, who is the VP of Business Development at Hootsuite. To be fair, it was a session on entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. Intrapreneurship being basically entrepreneurs who are allowed to work from within a business. And he said you need to give them the freedom and flexibility to do what they want. So within Google, for example, there's the 20% project, things like that. And think about how you can cannibalize your own business before the competition does. I think, and that's a key point that I want to leave you with. Whether it was being open about your data, whether it's being recognizing your biases and acting on them. I think it's important to know the various ways today in which you have the tools now to work on your business and make them better. Allow people within your business to make your business better, even if it means cutting off a slight portion of one product so that the business as a whole can grow. Because if you don't, then someone else will. Thank you.